All right, hello, and this is the Pro Wrestling Program. My name is Kyle, and today we are going to be reviewing SmackDown from November 24th, 2023. A sold-out crowd in Chicago, apparently, of over 16,000 fans. That's insane that they sold out a SmackDown show without Roman Reigns or John Cena being advertised. Now, this is the go-home show for Survivor Series, and you do have LA Knight there that probably would have been advertised. But that's crazy. WWE is on fire. Having said that, why the heck does LA Knight not have a match for Survivor Series? You're either top or second biggest babyface of the entire company. Pretty much the only thing that is holding SmackDown up week by week doesn't have a match for Survivor Series. One of the four big pay-per-views where the whole point is generally that everybody has a tag match and you can put multiple people in these matches. He has a match, or he doesn't have a match, but Dragon Lee has a match. I assume that LA Knight will have some kind of segment and be on the show as a surprise promo is what I'm expecting, but that's not enough for your top guy. What the heck were they thinking? And for the go home show for Survivor Series, they built up the women's match, but that's pretty much it. And the we'll get to the some good stuff, some negatives here, but to me, this was kind of a letdown of a show. Not incredible. We start off the show the right way. We have all the women baby faces out in the ring. They're going to be having their own in-ring promo. Becky did a good job selling herself as to why she's here because of her history with Damage Control, and that it feels like a big moment that she's part of the team. Everybody else does an okay job, and then it goes to Shotzi, and Shotzi seems so out of place. You have the three of the biggest stars in the women's division outside of Ripley. Ripley would be the only one that's above them. And these three, Charlotte, Bianca Belair, and Becky, are not just the biggest stars of the women's division outside of Ripley, they're some of the biggest stars of WWE, period. And then you have Shotzi, this little pit bull, cringy, as that just looks like she could be broken in half by blowing wind on her. Like you just go, whew, and she looks so small and so weak, and she's crazy and out of her mind in the most cringe, horrible way. Her promo was absolutely atrocious. I get why she's here because she's had her problems with Damage Control. I don't care. It's horrible. Anyway, then eventually the heels come out with Bayley, and they kind of get into a rift there, and the whole point is that they're going to have a tag match at the end of the night, and it's going to create some tension between Charlotte and Becky because they have a history, and it kind of slowly unravels as the night progresses, and I kind of like that. That makes sense. It's building towards the War Games match that they're going to have, but there's a lot of heat that's not necessarily there. And I think that they could have built this up a little bit more. Other than, them not trusting each other, I feel like if you're going to have a War Games match, it should have been a little bit stronger than what we got. But anyway, that's what they're going with. And then we had afterwards the Judgment Day putting on their tag titles on the line against Ford and Dawkins, who had won I think it was a fatal four-way last week on SmackDown. Either way, they are the number one contenders. They had a good match here where Dawkins and Ford were stellar. They were incredible. Judgment Day was doing okay. I feel like Ford and Dawkins, though, specifically Dawkins, which surprised me, was just on point in this match. It ended a little bit quicker than I wanted it to. Judgment Day eventually wins. All right, we're moving on to the next thing. Here's the thing, is that this is a perfect middle of the road. If Judgment Day wasn't going to have a match at Survivor Series, and I don't ever expect that to happen too often because the WWE is really pushing them as this big force on Raw, and they're really not. But anyway, they're trying, but if they're going to be having a match, specifically in War Games, and you didn't have anything here other than them beating Ford and Dawkins in the middle of the ring, what does this do for anything? Why? This, to me, felt like you have this in the middle when Judgment Day aren't feuding with anybody. You could have had this a few weeks ago, a few weeks after Survivor Series, something like that. That would be something, okay, well, it's a tag title match. It's on SmackDown. Hey, these are Raw guys. You could have built it up a little bit more and made it something worthwhile. That's not just a throwaway TV match that adds nothing to the Survivor Series show, that adds nothing to the Judgment Day title reign, that adds nothing to Ford and Dawkins. There was no angle here. There was no storyline. It didn't do anything. This is the whole go-home show for Survivor Series. Now, you can have totally feuds that are happening on SmackDown that won't get a pay-per-view, that won't end up being on the PLE. That happens. And you can still do that. But I don't think this is going anywhere. I don't see them getting a rematch anytime soon. They might, maybe then in that case, but there was nothing that made me think, oh, well, they totally deserve a rematch here. That's just the way I see it. Then we had the Grayson Waller show, and they say that Kevin Owens is back. Theory comes out to Kevin Owens music. Good stuff. I know that a lot of people don't necessarily like Grayson Waller. They rub him the wrong way, and I think that it's actually like bad heat. Like it's not regular heel heat, I think. Same thing with Theory. A lot of people don't necessarily like him, but I actually like these guys quite a bit. I love Theory. I think that he still has a very bright future. And I think that he's kind of getting a little bit of a bit better character at this point in time, especially compared to what he was getting last year. I like his character, this cocky heel character that jokes around with Grayson Waller a lot more than what he was as a solo star last year, even as the US champion. So I'm liking this. Grayson Waller can talk, and I think he's a great heel as well. I don't necessarily see him being world title material necessarily. Eventually it's possible. It's definitely possible. I don't see that necessarily now, but I could see him becoming an upper card guy that can kind of transition into the main event once in a while when an opponent is needed. Sorry, I keep banging my chair here. Sorry about that. I don't know if it picks up that much on the mic, but I'm sure it does. So I enjoyed this. Then eventually Owens comes out actually here. They said that he should be suspended. They're freaking out, and Owens cut some good little jokes here. He got a good pop from the crowd. The crowd was very lively. I mean, 16,000 people that are just on the edge of their seats because I guess it's a sold-out crowd, and they're freaking out. So anyway, Owens is out there. He said a few jokes that I actually kind of laughed at. Sometimes they're cringy, sometimes they're not. It depends. It's a fine line for comedy in wrestling, but I liked what he was saying, and eventually it led to LA Knight coming out. Massive pop from the crowd. The crowd is absolutely crazy for this guy. I don't understand why they don't want to have him have a match tomorrow night. I mean, we have 5 matches for Survivor Series. You could totally have a 6th. Depending on what they're doing, I obviously LA Knight is probably going to show up to cut a promo. Punk, if they have 5 matches because they need to have LA Knight do a 5-minute promo, and then Punk is going to come out and have some kind of segment, whether it be a promo or something else or more than just that. I don't know if Shinsuke Nakamura is going to have an actual open challenge at Survivor Series, which gets responded by Punk. If that's the case, I kind of get it. But I still feel like LA Knight, and we'll get into this in a second, I think that this would have been better served for LA Knight to have a match on the PLE instead of the Escobar match. Escobar actually did really good here, but I feel like we could have waited a little bit longer before we had his match, his eventual match. And the match that they're currently setting up just looks like crap, in my opinion. So anyway, they say they're going to have a tag match. Wait, did they have their tag match? I think they had their tag match right after this, didn't they? They did. Okay. Good little match. Not bad. There was a few flubs here and there when one of them had tried to clothesline LA Knight outside of the ring, and I think one of them had to try to grab him. I don't know. There was something weird that happened that was a bit of a botch at that point in time, but it was an okay match, and the crowd was really into it. LA Knight and Owens go over. Cool, good. Hopefully this is leading to something. And I think it is, because at least they're feuding. Owens is feuding with these two. LA Knight seems to be kind of a little bit directionless. Like it doesn't feel like he's not part of the show, because he definitely is. He always has a major presence. He's involved in a lot at the moment that really isn't leading towards something at the moment. He's kind of feuding with the Judgment Day and Jimmy, kind of, but he's not at the same time. He's kind of feuding with Grayson Waller and Theory, kind of, but not really. So I just wish that they would kind of find something for him because he can step in at any point, which is great. I mean, he's saving SmackDown by far, but I want him to have something substantial. This is a guy that you could totally push into the main event for the world and be a world champion, and the crowds would go crazy. I don't understand what they're doing here. They want Roman Reigns to be champion forever. I guess they are leading. If they lead towards Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania next year in 2024, not 2025, not 2026, not 2027, because that's possible at this point in time, which is ridiculous, then I'm all for it. But Knight has to be champion. And I think on the opposing brand, you should have, if Cody's going to be champ somewhere, I think LA Knight's your champ on the other brand. Gunther would be an acceptable champion as well instead of LA Knight, that LA Knight could eventually pursue. That I'm okay with. Gunther eventually beating Cody Rhodes would also be okay. Depends on what they want to push, but those are the top 3 guys that I really feel deserve to be world champion right now. Seth has kind of had his moment. That's nice. Priest, I don't see as a future world champ. Roman Reigns' time is done, was done 5 years ago. So many things there. Sami Zayn would be a nice win for a transitional champion. I would absolutely love that. And I think a lot of the crowd would just eat it up depending on the storyline that they give him. They have to kind of make him this ultimate underdog that's very passionate. What they did with Roman Reigns, I feel like at this point in time, we have to have a Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns rematch, and I would love that for that to be maybe at WrestleMania in 2025. Roman loses to Cody, slowly goes to the other brand, becomes champion at Survivor Series next year in 2024, and then we have Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns at the next WrestleMania 2025. That'd be freaking awesome. And then eventually you have Gunther defeating Cody. I'm all happy. That would be great. Anyway, moving on, we then have promos backstage, and they've kind of showed a few of these, but basically Becky Lynch is not trusting Charlotte, is upset with her, and we kind of had Bianca Belair explaining that it wasn't Charlotte who made the call, it was me that suggested that we do this, so it's on me, and they kind of try to make things up while at the same time showing that there's a bit of tension between Becky and Charlotte as they're heading into their tag match, and eventually there's a War Games match tomorrow night. So then we get Carlito coming out to do a promo. And this was good. I'm really down for this little feud that they're having with Escobar. Escobar comes out and he says that Ray is not your family. The LWO is not my family. Ray was my family. The LWO is my thing. That's my family. And you stole it away. And you're the reason why Rey Mysterio is now injured. That's on you. He puts the blame on Carlito. And I've never seen Escobar have so much character, have so much work into his promo. The one thing I didn't like necessarily is that they went and spoke in Spanish quite a bit throughout this, and I feel like I get that that's their native tongues, or at least Escobar. Carlito, I'm not really sure what his main language is, but I wish that they would have, maybe said 1 or 2 lines, but for the most part, because I know that in the States it's, English and then probably Spanish is your next biggest language spoken in that country, but I still feel like do a little bit of that, and then for the most part have both promos, because Escobar did great in an English promo. I was like, that's a good heel. That was great. And then eventually they kind of get into a little bit of a brawl. Eventually Escobar attacks the back of Carlito, and then we see them backstage, and he continues his assault, going for like an armbar, and then Dragon Lee gets involved, kind of attacks Escobar in a very awkward way, goes for a Hurricane Rana, and it looked horrible. And then eventually he talks to Aldis in the back saying that he wants to fight Escobar instead of Carlito because Carlito got attacked. And it's just, no. Dragon Lee has nothing to do with this other than he's a luchador. That's all that he has. And Carlito versus Escobar made so much more sense. Eventually, we're going to have Escobar versus Mysterio, I assume, at WrestleMania, which is great. But Carlito's the one that kind of started all of this. So you should have Escobar versus Carlito. And I know Carlito would have taken the loss in Survivor Series, but that makes sense. It makes sense as you're building Escobar. What the hell was this show? SmackDown was just all over the place. Then we have the Brawling Brutes versus Pretty Deadly. Holland eventually gets upset, leaves. It allows for Pete Dunne almost won. in the sense that he did his finisher on one of them, but he wasn't the legal man because they had done a quick tag, and then the other one just quickly rolls up, done. Or Butch, I guess is his name right now. And that's how Butch loses, because he doesn't have his partner, because Holden left because he was upset. Building towards a little something here. Nothing too crazy. It's going to be something that we're going to be seeing in the future, I guess. But just kind of dead at this point. Then we got the promo backstage for Dragon Lee wanting to be part of the match for Survivor Series. Or subbing in for Carlito, I guess. Then we had a promo backstage with the Judgment Day. And they kind of bring up a bit of stuff for Randy Orton. And I was okay with this. It kind of built it up a little bit to kind of show that, Orton shouldn't really be... Basically, they're just trying to cause dissension within the babyface group. It was okay. This is the biggest match probably of the PLE. So I get it. And then we eventually had Becky and Charlotte versus Bayley and Asuka. Really big names in the ring here. Should have been probably treated a little bit bigger. I mean, they were kind of building it towards the night, but I wish it would have gotten a little bit more time. You could have probably left out some of these matches, like Brawling Brutes versus Pretty Deadly. You could totally have that on SmackDown next week if you're really trying to build towards this big PLE and War Games match, kind of have a lot of dissension within the group. Eventually what happens is that Becky hits her finisher, and at the same time Charlotte hits a spear on one of the other... I can't remember who she was trying to pin, but it was, I don't know who she was trying to pin, but Becky does her finisher to either Bayley or Asuka. Charlotte does a spear to the other one, but it ends up hitting Becky, which causes the ref to not be able to count the pin. They kind of get into it, and eventually Bayley does a roll up on, I think it's Becky, but either way, the faces lose. Becky and Charlotte are at each other. And then Becky eventually leaves the ring, leaving the other three baby faces in the middle of the ring. That's well done. The angle here is that Becky still is not feeling like she trusts Charlotte. She's not really part of this team. Everybody else, Charlotte, Shotzi, and Bianca, especially Bianca, are very much in agreement and happy to be part of this team to go up against Damage Control. But Becky doesn't feel like she's part of it. And that was well done. That's what you want with baby faces. If you have all the baby faces in perfect unison, you can have a good storyline there, but that's not what they're going with this. And this is generally what usually happens in wrestling. You kind of create dissension within that group for the baby faces, so it allows the heels to be able to potentially beat them. And if not, it gives a good way for the baby faces to eventually actually work as a team, and that's how they get the win. It's good storytelling. It's basic storytelling, but it works. So overall, I felt there was a few misses here and there. I really wish LA Knight would have been pushed and built. They could have built a feud tonight for him to have a match at Survivor Series. Would have preferred that. Carlito versus Escobar would have made a lot more sense. And the Judgment Day versus Ford and Dawkins, to me, while it was a good little match for what it was, could have totally happened next week or the week prior or 2 weeks ago, kind of outside of this big War Games feud that they're having. I really feel like they shouldn't, or if Cody Rhodes should have been there, Sami Zayn could have been there. Orton? Could you imagine if Orton would have showed up on SmackDown? I mean, the crowds would go crazy. It doesn't make as much sense, but something, right? That was SmackDown. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this. And thank you all for watching. You have been bearded in. Beardage.